In the aftermath of the Russia-Ukraine war, big changes happened. Western countries put sanctions on Russia, hoping to hurt its economy. They thought Russia would suffer a lot. But something surprising happened. Russia actually got stronger. At first, things looked tough for Russia. The sanctions made it hard for them to do business with other countries. People thought Russia's economy might collapse because of this. But instead of falling apart, Russia's economy got better. While everyone expected Russia to struggle, it actually started doing really well. This was unexpected, especially with all the problems caused by the war. In this video, we'll take a closer look at what happened after the Russia-Ukraine war. We'll talk about how the war affected Russia's economy, the history between Russia and Ukraine, and how Russia managed to come out on top despite the challenges it faced. Let's dive in and see how Russia turned things around after the war. When the Russia-Ukraine war started, Russia faced a lot of economic challenges because of sanctions imposed by Western countries. We saw that they froze Russia's $300 billion in overseas accounts, and these sanctions blocked Russian banks from using global payment systems like SWIFT, and many big brands like McDonald's, Coke, Zara, and Apple stopped doing business with Russia. This hurt Russia's economy because domestic production stopped, leading to a big recession. The situation got worse with predictions of high inflation hitting 23%. It seemed like Western countries wanted to completely ruin Russia's economy with these sanctions. Even though Western countries tried to weaken Russia's economy with sanctions after the Russia-Ukraine war, Russia actually made a lot of money from the conflict. But here's the kicker. While Western countries were saying no to Russian fuel, they were secretly buying it behind the scenes. Russia also made a rule that anyone buying fuel from them had to pay in rubles. This made the Russian currency even stronger. They earned a huge amount of money directly from the war, and you will be surprised to know that it is even more than what China makes in a year. Russia's currency, the ruble, also became one of the strongest in the world. This happened because Russia focused on controlling fuel and food supplies, which made their currency more valuable. Basically, Russia turned a bad situation into a profitable one by smartly managing their resources. The war between Russia and Ukraine wasn't just a random fight. It was planned by the USA and the EU to hurt Russia. Let's take a look at what led up to it. Russia and Ukraine used to be pretty tight pals. Despite being separate countries, they're closely connected culturally, historically, and economically. But things have been tense between them, especially since Russia took over Crimea in 2014. This caused a big uproar internationally and made things even more tense between Russia and Ukraine. But things changed when the European Union, EU, and the United States, USA, started poking their noses into Ukrainian politics. They wanted Ukraine to join their team, not Russia's. In 2013, the EU even helped organize a big political shakeup in Ukraine. They got rid of the old government and put in a new one that was more on their side. Suddenly, Ukraine wasn't so friendly with Russia anymore. But here's where things get interesting. A TV show called Servant of the People came out in 2015, and it flipped Ukraine's mindset. This show had a big impact and changed how Ukrainians saw their country's leaders. Behind all this, the real reason for the conflict was the USA and the EU's own interests. They didn't really care about Ukraine. They just wanted to weaken Russia. NATO, a group led by the United States, played a big part in the fight between Russia and Ukraine. NATO's support for Ukraine and its actions to control Russia made the situation worse. Giving Ukraine weapons also made things more intense. Western countries like the United States and European Union also had a big say in what happened. They supported Ukraine and put sanctions on Russia to keep their power in the region. NATO and Western influence were important in shaping what happened between Russia and Ukraine and how it affected the world. Now let's talk about how the war between Russia and Ukraine affected Europe's money situation. Europe depends a lot on Russia for things like fuel, minerals, and food. But when the war broke out, Russia grabbed control of some important resources in Ukraine. This meant Europe suddenly didn't have access to the stuff it needed. For example, Europe gets almost half of its oil and natural gas from Russia. So when Russia cut off the supply, the prices for oil and electricity shot up like crazy. Suddenly, people in Europe were paying a lot more for things they needed every day. But it wasn't just fuel. Russia also took over minerals that Europe relied on for things like building stuff and making machines. And when Europe couldn't get those minerals anymore, it messed up a lot of industries. Wheat is another big deal. Ukraine and Russia are huge suppliers of wheat to Europe. But with the war disrupting things, Europe started to run short on wheat and other important foods. Plus, Europe couldn't get fertilizer from Russia anymore, which made it hard to grow food even if they had the wheat. So basically, Europe got hit hard by the war. Prices went up, industries got messed up, and people started having a hard time getting enough to eat. It was a rough situation all around. Therefore, Russia didn't just sit around when faced with Western sanctions. They found ways to use the conflict to their advantage. By controlling fuel and food supplies, they boosted the value of their currency, the ruble, making their economy stronger. Russia also grabbed valuable resources like gold, uranium, and coal fields in the areas they occupied after the war. This gave them more economic power. Even though Western countries stopped buying fuel from Russia, they secretly continued to do so. This boosted Russia's income. Reports suggest that Russia made around 158 billion euros from selling fuel alone. They also sold a lot of weapons, earning $5.2 billion, especially from African countries. But here's the clever part. Russia didn't just sell its weapons, it showed them off in Ukraine first. This way, other countries could see how powerful Russia's weapons were and want to buy them. This extra money from fuel and weapons helped Russia's economy a lot during the crisis. During the Russia-Ukraine conflict, Russia took control of key areas in Ukraine that turned out to be full of valuable stuff. They grabbed 41 coal fields, 27 natural gas sites, and 9 oil fields. Plus, they found gold, uranium, and lithium in these spots. So how much in total did Russia make with this war? Well, all this adds up to a whopping $12.4 trillion in value. This gave Russia a big economic advantage. By controlling these resources, Russia made sure they had enough energy and minerals for themselves. It also made Russia a powerful player in the global economy. Basically, Russia now owns a bunch of valuable land and resources they can cash in whenever they want. The Russia-Ukraine conflict teaches us some important lessons. Firstly, it reminds us how important it is to solve problems without fighting, to avoid making things worse. Secondly, it shows us how important it is to plan ahead and manage resources well during tough times. Russia did with its resources. Also, it shows us the importance of working together with other countries, like NATO, to keep everyone safe. And lastly, it reminds us to be careful about what we see and hear in the media, and to think critically about the news. Overall, the conflict reminds us to work for peace and understanding in the world.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from Knowledge Matrix, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.